So this one is for Nikki, and it's for Aaron. This one is for Brian, and for Deborah. This one is for me, and for Katie. This one is for our babies. Disaster is coming your way. It hit my family again this week, Monday morning to be exact. We got one of those phone calls. You know, those phone calls you read about, those phone calls you see in the movies, those phone calls you dread getting. We got one of those phone calls on Monday morning. We have, to this point, so far in 2013, had 3 deaths in my family. 1, 2, 3. 3 deaths in my family. So what the heck is going on? Right? Right. This is Psalm 121. I will lift my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Verse 1, look at it. I will lift my eyes. I will lift my eyes. I will lift. You have to make a decision. I have to make a decision to look beyond your immediate problems. I will lift my eyes. I will lift my eyes. You have to make the decision to look beyond your immediate problems. So wherever you are right now, do it. Make that decision to lift your eyes from your immediate problems and to set them higher. Look up. Well, Todd, what am I looking to? Put in the simplest way possible, you are meant to be looking to the house of God. Verse 1, I will lift my eyes to the mountains. This is a psalm of ascent. This is a psalm that God's people, Israel, they would have been singing on their way up to Jerusalem for the high holy days. So if you lived outside of Jerusalem, anywhere in the nation of Israel at that time, and you were going to travel to Jerusalem to celebrate the high holy days, you would have to ascend the mountains that surrounded Jerusalem. I grew up in Jerusalem. It is a mountaintop city. We used to, on the weekends, drive down from the city to the Dead Sea and do some swimming there. The water levels in the 80s were high enough that you could recreationally swim in the Dead Sea. More like float, and you did everything you could to keep your eyes out of the water because the salinity was so intense that if you got even the slightest bit in your eyes, you were running for the showers on the beach to rinse them out before it burnt your eyes to a crisp. The Dead Sea is not that fun if you actually swim in it rather than on it. Or we would drive down from the mountains of Jerusalem to Tel Aviv, and we would swim in the Mediterranean Sea, which was a lot nicer. That's where I learned to surf. Jerusalem is a mountaintop city. To get to Jerusalem, you have to ascend the mountains. This is a psalm of ascent. Some of my favorite psalms to preach from are the Psalms of Ascent, these songs that would have been sung by pilgrims as they were traveling up to Jerusalem for the high holy days. The roads up to Jerusalem are still treacherous. We used to drive in our little Volkswagen Passat up these hills, and they're switchbacks. You drive right past the site that is believed to be where the parable of the Good Samaritan actually took place. You can actually drive right past it, and you're turning left and right and switchbacking all the way up the hill. And if you hit it right at sunset, you get to see the sun setting on Jerusalem, and the city actually turns golden as the sun sets on it, which is why to this day Jerusalem is referred to as Jerusalem the Golden, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, we say in Hebrew. So it is a mountaintop city. So the people singing this psalm would have been singing it as they trudged their way uphill to Jerusalem at feast time. Quite literally, this means I will lift my eyes to Zion. Okay, Mount Zion is the principal mountain that Jerusalem sits upon. It sits upon Mount Zion, the Mount of Olives, and Mount Scopus. On Mount Scopus, to this day, you'll find the Hebrew University. Mount Zion and the Mount of Olives are, of course, places of holy kind of pilgrimage sites. There are churches there on the Mount of Olives facing the city of Jerusalem is where all the Jewish dead are buried. So they have packed that hillside with Jewish graves. It's quite something. You stand on the top of Mount of Olives, look down the hill into the valley of Gehenna, from which we get much of our hell imagery. You look down through the valley of Gehenna and up the hill to the Golden Gate, which is supposed to be where the Messiah will walk through to restore the temple. Very sobering. You see that the gate has been closed over. It was closed over during the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent by a Muslim kingdom. They closed the gate because they figured if it's bricked over, then the Messiah can't get through it. They also planted a Muslim graveyard in front of the Golden Gate because the belief is that the Messiah will come from the tribe of Levi, and as a priest he can't set foot in a graveyard, so they've done everything they can to stop the Jewish Messiah from coming. It's quite the image. So you have three mountains upon which Jerusalem sits: Mount Zion, Mount of Olives, and Mount Scopus. So as a pilgrim singing this psalm when it originally would have been written, you were singing it as a way to keep yourself inspired on your way up the hill, because we all know that there is almost nothing worse in life than an uphill climb. These people are singing this song, trudging uphill to Jerusalem, to Zion, which for us, of course, is a metaphor for Zion, capital Z, for the new Jerusalem, for the house of God, for heaven, for our eternal home. The first point from this is to keep your eyes fixed on your destination. Okay? Keep your eyes fixed on your destination. Why? Well, because they don't cry in Jerusalem. Well, what do you mean? I mean in the New Jerusalem. They don't cry in Jerusalem. They don't get sick in Jerusalem. Nobody dies in Jerusalem because everything is new in Jerusalem. And yes, I'm paraphrasing Revelation 21:5. The Bible is very clear. There is no hope for us in this life. Okay, it sounds bleak, I know. Okay, and I'm experiencing it. So if you're in a season of life where you're not experiencing it, I may sound like a downer to you. But the day will come, as I said off the top, when disaster will strike, and you will remember me saying to you that your time will come. And the Bible is clear. There is no hope for us in this world, I might add, outside of God. Our hope is in Zion, where even now King Jesus sits at the Father's right hand, interceding for you. Simply put, to intercede means to groan. So the image we have there is of Jesus himself, ascended to the Father, seated at his right hand, groaning for you, groaning for us. The reason that you might feel helpless is because you might be looking to the wrong place for help. Look again at verse 1. I will lift my eyes to the mountains, from whence comes my help. If you know the famous charismatic song, I lift my eyes up to the mountains, where does my help come from? It sounds in the song, my help comes from you, maker of heaven, creator of the earth. It sounds like the writer knows where his help is coming from. I lift my eyes up to the mountains, from whence cometh my help, as if he's expecting his help to come from there right off the top. In the Hebrew, he's actually asking the question like, is anybody going to save me? I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From whence? From where comes my help? He's literally saying, anybody? Somebody? Could I get some help here? Could somebody throw me a freaking bone? I need help. Have you ever felt that way? Me too. Me too. If you ever feel alone, I want you to know today that it is normal. Okay? It does not make you a bad person. It does not mean that you are faithless. I feel that, thank God, right? It does not mean that you are faithless. Even the psalmist here is saying, I lift my eyes up to the mountain, from whence cometh my help. Somebody? Okay, if you ever feel alone, it simply means that you are human. And as such, as a human being, you have been crafted by the maker of heaven and earth. My help comes from you, the maker of heaven and earth. If you feel alone, that means you're human. If you're human, that means you were made, crafted by the maker of heaven and earth. So there is a very good chance that you're going to be just fine. Verse 2, my help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. In the Hebrew, it's even more intense. My help comes from with the Lord. Me'im Adonai. My help comes from with the Lord. In the Hebrew, it sounds like someone is with the Father. Okay? In the Hebrew, it sounds like someone comes from the Father. As a Christian preacher, this sounds an awful lot like Jesus to me. Someone who has been with the Father from the beginning. Someone who was sent from the Father in the fullness of time. The maker of heaven and earth. Are you hearing John 1:1 in your mind? In the beginning was the Word, the Logos. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him. And without Him, nothing was made that was made. Sounds an awful lot like Jesus. The maker of heaven and earth, just take it. The maker of heaven and earth is your help. The word for maker is asa, and it means to handcraft. The implication when you call someone the maker in Hebrew, the one who asa heaven and earth, is that he got his hands dirty making everything that is. You need to picture God with the dirt of creation under His fingernails. Okay? He is not some distant God who kind of thinks everything into being. He is the one who asa it. He actually handcrafted everything that is. The image of God making our first father Adam is of Him stooping at a creekside, crafting the first man from literally the dust of the earth. So if God actually made, if He asa heaven and earth, if everything that is was handcrafted by the master maker, it seems very likely to me that He'll be willing to get a little hands-on in saving you. If I was in church, I would ask for an amen. Right? He's willing to get His hands dirty in saving you. So keep moving forward. Look at verse 3. He will not allow your foot to be moved. Like, why are feet important? This is so alien to us. It's almost like, He will not allow your car to break down, but that's so lame. It lacks power. He will not allow your feet to be moved. Why do feet matter? Because it's with your feet that you keep walking. Okay? Continuous motion, continued journeying is what is important here. This is why it's important that our feet not be moved. Remember, we're pilgrims singing this song on our way uphill to Jerusalem for the high holy days. He will not allow your foot to be moved. It's with your feet that you keep walking. You're meant to be reminded here that you are on a journey to Zion. It is uphill. Keep walking. Okay, if you ever feel like life is an uphill journey, it is. Okay, so don't give up. Keep walking. This is the same story for everybody. It's just to varying degrees. If you haven't gotten the phone call yet, you will get the phone call someday. If everything hasn't fallen apart already, it will someday. Don't kid yourself. Don't think that your money, your status, your fame, your fortune, your popularity will save you from disaster striking, because it won't. Okay, you are on an uphill journey to Zion. Keep walking. Because, verse 3, He who keepeth Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. He who keeps you will not slumber. Your guardian won't be caught napping. Do you ever feel like, to quote Carrie Underwood, Jesus took the wheel and then promptly fell asleep? All right? Jesus, take the wheel, but stay awake. Does it ever feel like he's falling asleep at the wheel? Yes. Yes. I feel that way this week. Like, what in God's name are you doing, God? Like, wake up. You're driving my life off the road here. Help! You know, wake up. The Bible is clear. Here's where you have a clash of worldviews. This is where you bow your worldview to the worldview of Scripture. Okay? The Bible says, He is not asleep at the wheel. So take a deep breath and keep trusting Him. Look at verse 4. Behold, He who keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Very famous verse. Again, the root of a very famous charismatic chorus, he who keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. It's prefaced by a behold. Anytime you see a behold in the Hebrew Scriptures, it's hine. It's wake up and take notice. Okay, so regardless of how you feel, wake up and take notice. He's not going to fall asleep. He who keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. It's totally and completely imperative in the Hebrew. And Israel means you. Israel is Hebrew speak for God's people. Okay, if you are one of God's children, if you are part of God's people, God will not, he who keepeth you, will neither slumber nor sleep. He's not napping, and he is not going to fall asleep. Put simply, the guardian of Israel is an insomniac. Okay? Your guardian is an insomniac. He isn't sleeping. He isn't sleeping. Bless the Lord, he isn't sleeping. Look at verse 5. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. Bless God. Shade. Why do I need shade? Because they are trudging uphill through a rock desert in a heat wave. You may not know this, but Israel has the climate of Northern California. In the summer, it's hot there like the Mojave Desert. I grew up there. It is so hot, it'll get up to 140 degrees in the summertime. Okay, high holy days, there's a very good chance, this is September, that they're walking uphill through a rock desert and it's 110 degrees and the sun is beating down and you have your entire family with you. You've been walking, some of you, for weeks if you lived up in northern Israel. It is so hot that the old people in your party could drop dead from the heat. What you need while trudging uphill through a rock desert in a heat wave is some shade, for God's sake. Could I please get some shade? All right? My family needs some shade. All right? If you feel like you need some shade, you are not the only one. Here's the point. When things go from bad, you're on a long journey to Jerusalem, to worse, it's an uphill journey. Like if you'd come down from the Galilee, if you lived in northern Israel, and you got to the valley, which is near Qumran, which is kind of the gateway to the desert that is home to the Dead Sea, you would turn and look uphill, and you would see the mountains of Jerusalem looking impossibly far in the distance. It is so high, it is beyond daunting. And you're not driving in a Volkswagen Passat. You are walking with your children, okay, on foot through a desert in a heat wave. When things go from bad, you're on a long journey, to worse, it's uphill, to unbearable, it's in the blazing sun. That is when you look for Jehovah Tzalecha. You're like, I've never heard of that version of Jehovah. You know Jehovah Jireh, right? My provider, right? You know Jehovah Nisi. There's all kinds of famous Jehovah-isms that we Christians tend to use whenever we're in need. Well, I'm creating a new one here, Jehovah Tzalecha. You're like, well, Jehovah, I know. What is Tzalecha? Jehovah, the God, your shade. Okay, God who is your shade in the heat wave. So when things go from bad to worse to unbearable, look for God, your shade. That was me yesterday. I sat on the phone talking to my wife, and after we hung up and I sat there weeping as my kids sat upstairs at the breakfast table, I just gave up. I just said to God, Uncle, I'm out. I give up. I'm out. I can't do anything. I can't fix it. I'm out. It's over. I need some shade. I need some shade. I need some shade. That's why Psalm 21 is for me. Look at verse 6. The sun shall not strike you by day, feel it, nor the moon by night. This is 24-hour protection we are being promised here. Friend, no matter what you face, no matter when you face it, God is your guardian. Verse 7, the Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The word for soul here in Hebrew is wonderful. It's nephesh, which means human flesh, skin, soul. That's what nephesh means. It basically means human being. He shall preserve your humanness. not just your soul. Right? We think he shall preserve your soul. Great, okay, my eternal destiny is secure. Nephesh is much more than that. It means your essential humanness. He is the guardian of your unique humanness. Okay, hear me. He is the guardian of your unique humanness, your unique sorrow, your unique suffering. In everything that makes you human and fallen and frail and places you in need, God is guarding you. Bless the Lord. Verse 8, the Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. The Lord shall preserve. It's the same word. 6 times it appears in this psalm. It means to guard. The Lord shall guard your going out and your coming in. Wherever you're going, wherever you're from, all the time, everywhere, God is your guardian. Verse 8, from this time forth and forevermore. Okay, here's the promise. In this moment, from this time forth, right now, okay, in Maui, with a breathing tube down your throat, God is your guardian. He's been doing it. He is doing it. He will do it. La'olam. From this time forth and forevermore. Forevermore in Hebrew is la'olam. It means to the world. Okay, he is doing it. He's been doing it. He will do it to the world, which last time I checked means forever. So that, bless the Lord, O my soul, is what the heck is going on.